What's going on, y'all? I'm your host, Paco Elijah. You're tuning in to Liberty Watch. This is our second episode. Got many more to come. And if you haven't already, like the page on Facebook, Occupy the Media. Subscribe to the YouTube page and check out the website as well, Occupy the Media. But if you want the most current, up-to-date news, definitely the Facebook page is where it's at and where I put it first. But let's go ahead and jump into it. Yesterday, Thomas Massey put forth the Massey Amendment to try and defend our Fourth Amendment right. This is great. Matter of fact, if you live in Kentucky, I'm a little jealous of you because you got Rand Paul and you got Thomas Massey over there defending your rights, and I'm glad they're fighting for all of us. But before they had the debate yesterday, Thomas Massey put up a post on his Facebook page, and I want to read some of it, kind of going into the amendment. So it says here, the House of Representatives is set to debate and vote on a renewed effort to restrict warrantless surveillance. The amendment offered to the fiscal year 2017 Department of Defense Appropriations Bill by Representative Thomas Massey and Representative Zoe Lofgren from California, a Democrat in the 19th District, would prohibit warrantless backdoor searches of U.S. citizens' online communications without first obtaining a warrant. It would also prevent the government from coercing individuals and companies to insert software or hardware vulnerabilities, also known as encryption backdoors, into products for surveillance purposes. The House of Representatives passed an identical amendment last year by an overwhelming 255 to 174 vote, and the year before by a veto-proof majority. Okay, so and he states right here that the Massie-Lofgren Amendment has two components. All right, so the first prohibits warrantless searches of U.S. persons' online communications and data. Currently, under Section 702 of the FISA Amendment Act, Americans' private data and communications, including emails, photos, and text messages, are incidentally collected by intelligence agencies. This allows access to a vast swath of communications and data without a warrant. Now, the second component prohibits government agencies from pressuring companies to build encryption backdoors in products or services for surveillance purposes. Industry leaders, technologists, and cryptologists agree these encryption backdoors put the data security of any individual using these services at risk. Okay, so that's the amendment he's trying to put forth to defend our Bill of Rights, our Fourth Amendment rights. Basically, get a warrant, follow the Constitution. We shouldn't even have to put forth these amendments, but I'm glad somebody is. And it's great that Thomas Massey is actually working with Democrats as well. So we can come together on issues that we agree on. You know, we all agree on privacy. He said it in another video with Matt Kibbe. You guys can check that out on the page as well. Is that basically you don't need to have a label to agree with privacy or to stick up for privacy. We all want privacy, and it's good to know that we got a couple of a couple of liberty candidates in there fighting for us. Now you can check out the debate that went down on the amendment on Occupy the Media page. Now, standing with Massey as well was former Judge Representative Ted Poe from Texas in the 2nd District. He's still with Massey, and he said the amendment requires you to get a warrant and that the Constitution applies to Americans. So we need more of our representatives standing up with Thomas Massey. Now, we need less representatives like these. These representatives stood against the Massey Amendment. Chris Stewart from Utah in the 2nd District, Representative Bob Goulat from Virginia in the 6th District, Representative Rodney Frayling-Hussein from New Jersey. Okay, so if you watch the debate, they're talking about how the tools are going to be taken away, where, you know, the intelligence agencies are going to be handicapped pretty much, and they can't do what they need to do to combat or fight terrorism, which they're not doing a good job with it at it already. But it's just the same fear tactics that they keep on pushing. And but Massey definitely sees through all of that, and he basically combats them, and they debate a little bit back and forth. But definitely worth checking out. Definitely worth checking Thomas Massey defending our Bill of Rights. And the Democrat actually gave a very good argument in stating our position, the constitutional position, coming from a Democrat. So there are some Democrats out there that agree with us on certain issues, thankfully, like privacy. And I think that the Fourth Amendment brings more people together probably than any other amendment. We all just want to be left alone. Left alone. Now, at the end of the debate, Thomas Massey introduced into the record a letter from the director of the National Intelligence Agency that shows Americans are being spied on without a warrant using the 702 program. Okay, so I'm glad he put that in the record as well, which most of us knew it already. Let's see here, especially since the Snowden leaks. Now, at the end of his post, or actually a later post, Massey put up, if we let terrorism compel us to ignore the Constitution, then haven't the terrorists won? This week, I've been defending the Bill of Rights in Congress. I demanded a recorded vote, which I suspect will happen Thursday around noon. Okay, so that's what, today, and that should be happening soon. So hopefully that will pass. It's amazing that we have to still fight for something that's already law. It's already in the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. They should already be respecting that. As far as I'm concerned, these politicians are acting criminal just by violating the Bill of Rights. We shouldn't have to have these amendments or these bills to state the obvious. But again, I'm glad Thomas Massey is standing up to them. I'll definitely post up any video regarding to this or to the vote, so you guys can check that out and Occupy the Media. Also, if you didn't see, Justin Amash put out a nice little tweet retweeting Trump. So I don't know if you saw this, but Trump put out, I will be meeting with the NRA, who has endorsed me, about not allowing people on the terrorist watch list or the no-fly list to buy guns. So Justin Amash responded or retweeted, denying rights on the basis of secret lists without due process is unconstitutional. Exactly. We don't need any type of gun regulations, like no list. We don't need no license. We don't need no permit. We don't need any regulations due to medical reasons or any of that. Now, a lot of people will bring that up. Well, they're on a terrorist watch list or they're mentally ill. Well, a lot of people are on the terrorist watch list, and they keep repeating as well that they got congressmen, they got people that are working for government on that list. We've seen kids be on that list. So you can't go off of some secret list. You need to be on a wanted list. Like, you are wanted because you're a criminal list. That's all there needs to be. If you were wanted because you violated someone's rights, or you committed murder, or you did something, then you're not going to fly because you're going to get arrested and go to jail. We don't need no list for anything to keep you from buying guns. If something is wrong or you committed a violent act, then you're a criminal and you're not going to be able to fly anyways. We just need to keep it like that. But they want to point to that reason, and they also want to point to the medical issue. The fact that people are crazy and we got nuts out here that'll just go shooting everybody up like they did in Orlando. Well, there's no way we can 100% stop that. Government can't stop it. But what we can do is require the government to leave us alone, respect the Bill of Rights, so we can defend ourselves. So if there is some crazy nut out there that's going to shoot everyone, that's going to go crazy, and just start trying to mass murder everyone, there's going to be law-abiding citizens there to shoot back. And guess what? Those criminals are going to know that, and they're going to think twice before doing it. Now, these people are so mental, as they say. They're so mental, but yet they know to go to gun-free zones. They always go to gun-free zones. So how mental are they? You see, they got a plan, and they want to take as many people as they can. And where do you go? You go where you got sitting ducks. Okay, you just go for the obvious. They can't shoot back. They can't defend themselves. So that's where we're going to go. Well, the deterrent to that is that we have an armed society and people can defend themselves. And that's how we fight off the mentally ill. So if someone does start shooting, there's going to be law-abiding citizens there to shoot right back. Okay? And that's what we need. We need to stop being scared of having an armed society, or scared of seeing people walking around with rifles or handguns, or, just let people live and be. Let people protect themselves. And I believe that in an armed society, it's going to be a polite society. People are going to be more respectful, And some liberals think that if everybody got guns, everybody's just going to go shooting crazy. Well, that means that everybody got to be suicidal then. Just because you're a gun lover, or you like to carry your guns, or you like the Second Amendment, that doesn't mean you just want to go around shooting, because you're going to get shot back. So it makes no sense. It's like, we will do just fine if we defend ourselves. Okay, and so I think it's great that Justin Amash is calling Trump out on this, because now Trump is flip flopping, and the thing is, he ain't really for the Constitution, anyways. Uh, he wasn't for the First Amendment. He pretends to be, but back at the debate with Rand, the one Rand was in, he said that we should regulate the internet, and people are gonna say free speech, freedom of speech, and they're foolish. So he ain't really, he's so backwards on everything. He ain't for the First Amendment. He's flip flopping on the Second Amendment. We know that he isn't for the Fourth Amendment or the Fifth Amendment. I mean, Donald Trump is not for the Bill of Rights. So it shouldn't come to any surprise. But hopefully this will get some of them Trumpsters off of him, and maybe wake up to the fact that he's just saying whatever. He's just pandering, and he's just giving red meat, and it's obvious. All right. All right. Next thing I want to get into is the Ron Paul Liberty Report, the best show on the internet, hands down. He had on an activist yesterday, Mary Ruwart, and they talked about the compassion of libertarianism. So I definitely recommend that you check out the interview. I didn't see the whole thing, probably about half of it, but it was great. She talks about how she always wanted to help out the poor, and she thought by being a liberal, that was, the right way of doing it. But then she realized that you don't need to have the force of a gun to help people, and she realized that it wasn't working. So she found out about libertarianism, and she's been excited ever since. And it's great to see people like her get excited about becoming libertarians and learning about the message, because it is exciting, because it's like you find the answer. I tell people, like, we don't need to worry about convincing anybody right now. Just plant those seeds, because libertarians are in the right. We are. It's just about everybody else catching up, everybody else realizing it. So, but the truth is on our side. Now, when they were talking, she brought up a good example of big government. Now, I guess she had some tenants. She used to have some tenants, and she says that they were pushed out of business by government. They used to sew in their home, or they used to do childcare, and it was totally fine by her as a landlord. She didn't care. She was fine with it, but it wasn't fine with the city government. They even asked her to evict them, okay, to evict them for being productive. Now, she asked the city, well, what are these people going to do if you shut them down? And the city replied, they should go on welfare. They should go. You see, the government wants you to be dependent. They become more powerful and rule more over your life when you become more dependent. But this is the type of answer and the response you get. Here we have people being productive, doing something, trying to make a living, trying to survive. But yeah, here come the government saying, no, you need to evict them, and whatever happens to them, oh, whatever, they should just go on welfare anyways. This is what our government does, and people wonder why there's so many poor people out there, or so much poverty, or so much violence and crime. It's just because government makes it so hard to succeed if you didn't have if you weren't privileged, or if you weren't fortunate like others. A lot of people in this country have it really, really bad. And when government is there just suppressing and making it harder to move on up, then of course they're going to result to welfare. They're going to result to robbery. They're going to result to selling drugs, selling guns on the street, whatever it takes. And so government's getting in the way of the market. And if we had a free market, maybe these people that she's speaking of would have continued doing their business, and maybe they would have been a great business and expanded one day, and actually became an official business one day and grew into something great. But instead, here comes government to stomp on the competition, just stomping them. That's what government does. They hate capitalism, they hate private business, they just stomping it out like it's a forest fire or a fire. I don't think you can stop a forest fire, but all right. So also, Ron Paul joined financeandliberty.com yesterday. Great website. Great YouTube channel. They have Ron Paul interviews up there, I guess every so often, or they had him a couple of times. Now caught some of the interview, and was one question that he asked Ron Paul in regards to the Orlando attacks. How should the government combat terrorism without sacrificing personal liberty? And of course, Ron Paul went into an in-depth answer and gave it to him straight. But one thing that I want to point out that he said is that, look at the Constitution. The founders didn't talk about safety. Safety is not a function of government. You see, we as libertarians, we got to get this point across to people that, You got to stop thinking that government is here to protect you and save you and fly down, fly in like Superman. And you think these candidates are for change and they're just going to make life better and give you more money in your paycheck and a job and free education. No, government ain't there to protect you. It ain't there to give you things. That's not what government's role is supposed to be. The way I like to look at government when I talk to people is I try to maybe tell them that government is to ensure justice. You know, that's why we have our government, to protect our liberty. So if your rights are violated, you know, the government is going to ensure that those people are held accountable. But the government can't go around protecting everyone. It's our job to protect ourselves. So, you know, instead of looking towards government to protect us, we should be looking towards our community, towards our neighbors, towards our friends and families. And if we lived in a free society, I think we'd be a lot more open, a lot more connected. People would be a lot more prosperous, a lot more happy, and we get along more. And so we would want to protect each other and come together. And if something happens or something goes down, you don't need to worry about the police or worry about them coming too late or them not being there in time. You got your neighbors, you got your friends, you got your community, your neighborhood. You got people there that's gonna stick up for one another. You know, and that's how it needs to be. And if you're armed, and criminals know that society is armed, they know that most of the city is armed, and criminals are gonna think twice because they don't know what's behind that door. You know, I could have a rocket launcher. You don't know what I got. So it's a good thing when we recognize the role of government and we recognize that we don't need to be living in fear. And even if we have fear, we need to stop thinking the government is going to protect us or keep us safe, because really they're making us less safe. They're making it worse. They're making the problem worse. No matter where you look at, economics, foreign policy, anything, education, healthcare, they make everything worse. We need to depend on ourselves. That's what we need to do. We just get the government out of the way. Now, if you didn't catch this, in Kentucky, the mayor, Jim Gray, is using the Orlando shooting to attack Rand Paul. So, you know, these Democrats, these politicians are stooping to a new low. And basically says here, Mayor Jim Gray said Senator Paul voted to allow potential terrorists to buy guns. He chose to protect the rights of radical Islam. So now, because Rand Paul is standing up for the Second Amendment, he is somehow standing up for radical Islam. Okay? So you see, terrorists want you to give up your freedoms, give up your liberties. So how can standing up for your freedom, standing up for your liberties, be standing up with terrorists? It don't make any sense. And that's what these politicians try to do. They almost try to paint these liberty candidates as if they're standing with the terrorists. No, we're standing with the Constitution. You're not standing with the Constitution. So who are you standing with? That's the question we need to ask. What is your agenda? Why are you so pressed on taking people's rights away? Like, these people are just so feisty, and then I guess they had a filibuster about it with as far as the Democrats, as far as our gun rights. It's ridiculous. Like, you think they really care that much? No, they just care about power, authority, and taking away more of our rights and our liberties. And they're using these tragic events to their advantage. And they know that Americans are emotional. We run on emotion. It's sad, but it's true. So they use that to their advantage. And Jim Gray's up there on the news holding up a headline, a news clip about the Orlando shooting, using the Orlando shooting to try and criticize Rand Paul and try to somehow put that on people like him that are standing up for gun rights. Okay, now, Senator Rand Paul released a statement saying partly, the legislation I supported prevented the Obama administration from drawing up a secret list of hundreds of thousands or even millions of Americans who, through no judicial process, are stripped of their rights. Okay, so I guess Jim Gray's getting on Rand Paul for a vote. I think it was back in December. Well, Rand Paul was explaining that it's not just terrorists. You guys can't just call it terrorists. It's actual Americans that could be caught up in it, and then we could be on these lists. And then we could have our gun rights, Second Amendment rights stripped away. And they act like it's no slippery slope, or it can't happen, or it's just going to be the bad guys. Why should we trust y'all? You guys lie all the time. All the time. So we should trust you now. I think not. No, we're not going to. We're going to stick to the Bill of Rights, stick to the Second Amendment, and understand that government is inefficient and it has its own agenda. And it's not an agenda of personal liberty or individual liberty. It's an agenda of growing the state, growing big government, becoming bigger, becoming powerful, growing the empire, more rules, more authority, more laws, more bills. While you and I, less freedom, less rights, less liberty, less free time with our families because we're slaving, or less jobs, less pay. It's all opposite for us, but yet they're doing just fine. All right, now, lastly, I want to get into some good news, a little good news. Sometimes you got to turn the bad news into good news. So obviously, the Orlando shooting was a horrific thing, but you know, there is some good news that come out of it. Is that gun sales are on the rise in the West, and see, this is good because we know that people are fighting back against the narrative the media tries to push that a lot of Americans want regulations on guns. Well, that may be true that a lot do, but it isn't the majority. There's a whole lot that don't want any regulations. They don't want the government taking away their rights. So sales are on the rise in the West. It says here gun sales in Utah have been higher the last few days, which is something gun store owners say is common across the nation after a mass shooting. Quote, I don't think it's so much the shootings that do it, but the rhetoric after that comes from Congress, gun sales manager Dave Larson said. And that is so true. And maybe it's not so much that it's the shooting, the mass shooting, the terrorist attack, but it's actually the words, the speeches that come afterwards, where it's not even 24 hours and these politicians trying to strip away our gun rights already, just blaming it all on the guns. And so it's true. That's what's making everybody go. So it's backfiring. It's like blowback. They want people to stop buying guns. They want to scare you into submission, scare you into believing that government can save you, the police can save you. But instead, people are going out buying more guns. You're going to try to take away my guns? I'm going to buy more. I'm going to stock up on more ammo. So I think that's a positive thing. And, I think a lot of us, not all of us, need to try in some way to push to get our Second Amendment rights, especially get them back, especially in certain states like mine, California. I'm from Virginia, and out there the gun rights were a lot better. The gun laws were a lot better, but we got to push for everyone across the country to have their Second Amendment right to defend themselves, whether it be a small mob, a gang, or a big mob we call government, or just another individual. It doesn't matter. We need to be able to protect ourselves. Now, before I let you guys go, I want to mention a new piece that's out yesterday from Occupy the Media contributor Tony Canzoneri. Great piece. Orlando shooting, a case for gun control. Check that out. I want to read one quote from it that I think hits it on the nail. The left often likes to point out the reasons why prohibition and the war on drugs have failed, rightfully so, but yet they can't seem to draw any correlation to this. But ask yourselves this. If pushing drugs and alcohol to the black market had dangerous results for everyone involved, how dangerous might the results be with firearms? Exactly. So a lot of these liberals bring up the drug issue, and not just that. We also got to point out the fact that if the government can't stop drugs from being on the streets, and they can't regulate drugs to keep them off the streets and keep them away from our young ones, our youth, or anyone, then how are they going to keep guns from everyone? How are they going to get rid of all the guns? They just can't. It can't happen. Gun control won't work. It's not about gun control. It's about control. So definitely encourage you guys to check out the piece, like it, share it. Don't forget the page, Occupy the Media. We'll have some more news and hopefully breaking news today. And till tomorrow, peace.